From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as
Johnny Dollar.
This is Red Egan, Johnny.
Oh, how are you, Red? Was it a boy or a girl?
Both. Barry had twins.
Well, then double congratulations. Do I get 2 cigars?
Sure, if you'll come down to my office and pick them up.
Fair enough.
Better pack a suitcase, too. I have a job for you.
Where?
The coroner's holding an inquest in Rexford, Wyoming tomorrow afternoon. I'd like you to be in on it.
Why?
We have a dead client named Underwood. We don't know if he was murdered, committed suicide, or had an accident.
What does it look like?
All three.
I'll be there in an hour.
John Lund in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Allied Adjustment Bureau, Suite 418, Markham Building, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Underwood matter. The situation wasn't a new one, and our position wasn't any different. Red Egan reminded me of all this in his office.
We're in the same old spot, Johnny, with the same old problem. The policyholder's dead, and for looking into it, the insurance company is no longer a friend of the widow or the orphan, but a big, bad monster trying to weasel out of a just claim.
And every claim is a just claim.
Well, the claim came into our office yesterday afternoon. They turned it over to me for adjustment this morning. I phoned the beneficiary in Rexford, and she hung up on me.
Oh?
Underwood's widow. She didn't like it a bit, having an insurance man in Hartford calling her up. Even after I explained that any insurance conduct an investigation on a claim, and that's my business.
Mm-hmm. Well, what exactly happened to Underwood?
The only thing I really know is that he fell 4 stories from a hotel window and died instantly. Here, the AP account of his death came from a local paper there.
Mm-hmm. How big was the policy?
$25,000. Double indemnity if it was an accident, of course. And no payment if he committed suicide.
This doesn't say anything about suicide.
My guess is that a local reporter wrote that up. Underwood was a major stockholder in the newspaper it appeared in. I doubt if they'd suggest suicide, don't you?
I don't know, Red. I never met the editor.
Well, meet him if you like. Talk to him. Talk to anybody. When you get to Rexford, go to the inquest and sit with the spectators. Listen to what everybody has to say. After all, it's up to the coroner's jury there to decide whether Underwood was pushed, fell, or jumped to his death. Not us. I just want you there to be sure that whatever Columbia does about this claim, that it's all tidied up. Okay?
Okay. Oh, how about my cigars?
Sure, help yourself. Cost me $3.69 a box.
On second thought, you can buy me a drink. Expense account item 1. $214.65. Plane fare, train fare, bus fare, and incidentals between Hartford and Rexford. I arrived at 11:30 in the morning and checked in at the same hotel where Raymond Underwood had met his death. I had some lunch in the coffee shop, and after that I struggled my way against a belligerent north wind to the city hall and the inquest. There I sat with the reporters and listened to a bellhop, a desk clerk, and a chambermaid give their versions of what had happened the day Underwood met his death. I was most interested in what Mrs. Underwood had to say.
Down, please. When did you last see your husband, Mrs. Underwood?
Last Thursday morning.
About what time?
12 o'clock. A little before, I guess.
And where?
The Pioneer Hotel. In his room there.
The same room he occupied prior to his death?
Yes.
Were you alone?
Yes, just with him.
And what time did you leave?
I was only there 15 or 20 minutes. Must have left before 12:30. I had an appointment.
That was the last time you saw Mr. Underwood alive?
Yes. They called me about 3 in the afternoon and told me that it had happened.
What did you talk to your husband about, Mrs. Underwood?
We were talking about being divorced.
Was the deceased in good health?
Yes,
Had he been drinking?
some. Not much. I guess he'd had a couple before I got there.
She was a tall, dark-haired woman in her early 30s. Her clothes were New York, the perfume Paris, the rings Tiffany's. She answered the questions of the interrogator without hesitation, without emotion. It had been previously established by the desk clerk that she'd left the hotel room a full 15 minutes before Underwood had plunged to bed. By 4:30 in the afternoon, it was all finished. The jury brought in their verdict for the coroner's man to read.
This jury that the said Raymond W. Underwood came to his death by a broken back received in a fall from the 4th story of the Pioneer Hotel at or about 12:30 p.m. on Thursday, February 19th.
I left the city hall and went down to the Western Union office and wired the news to Red Egan. After that, I looked up Sergeant Hannon at the police station. He gave me a copy of the coroner's verdict and the death certificate.
Here you are.
Thanks.
How much you stuck for?
$50,000?
That's the way it goes, huh?
Yeah, I suppose so. Sergeant,
Yeah?
where's Mrs. Underwood from?
Here.
All her life?
All her life. Born and raised right here in Rexford. Of course, she went to school in the East, and she's been in Europe a couple of times, but most of her life right here.
Mighty pretty widow.
Mighty rich one, too. Underwood had it.
I know. This, divorce.
Everybody in town knew they weren't getting along. Never did get along. How could they? Alice is 28, and Ray was over 50. He could have been her father. As a matter of fact, he almost was.
How's that?
Well, he raised her from the time she was 14. He paid for all her schooling and growing up. She didn't have any folks after her old man died. Ray was pretty good to her.
I see.
We went over what you were thinking, Dollar. Sure, anybody would. But they were talking about divorce. The papers had been drawn up for a settlement. She'd got a lot of money in alimony and so on. Alice had no call to push him out of that window or have anybody else do it.
What about the possibility of suicide?
The jury said accident. Besides, everybody here knew Ray. He wasn't the suicide type.
Nobody's the suicide type till they come to the end of the line, Sergeant. Then it's too late to interview him and ask him about it. But it's already been said as an accident, so I guess I'm just throwing words around.
You have a right to do that if you aren't satisfied with the verdict, Dollar. Anything we can do, we'd be glad to help.
Thanks a lot. Expense account item 2, $10.80, public stenographer. I assembled copies of all the testimony, re-interviewed the people at the hotel, had all of it typed up and notarized and forwarded to Hartford. Then made arrangements to meet my eastbound plane in Cheyenne. I was about to check out when my phone rang. Johnny Dollar.
I'm trying to get you for 3 hours, Johnny.
What's up, Red?
The insurance agent in Cheyenne just got back from his vacation and read about Underwood's death. He phoned Columbia long distance with some information. 2 days before it happened, Underwood phoned this agent. He said he wanted to change the beneficiary on his policy. He didn't say who to.
Uh-oh.
And now, get this. The morning Underwood died, he phoned and said to never mind, that Mrs. Underwood was still his beneficiary. What do you make of it?
I don't know. Maybe I'd better find out.
What matters do you want to clear up?
Oh, just some details about your husband's death, Mrs. Underwood. I sure hate to trouble you at a time like this.
That's perfectly all right, Mr. Dollar. Sit down. Can I get you a drink?
Scotch will be fine.
All right.
Did you know that Mr. Underwood wanted to change the beneficiary on his insurance policy last week?
Yes. Water all right?
Oh, fine. We also learned that he changed his mind about that the day he died. Can you explain any of that?
I think so, Mr. Dollar. Ray and I were going to be divorced. He moved out of the house better than a month ago. We went to his attorneys and drew up a tentative property settlement. Here you are.
Thanks.
I didn't see him for 3 weeks or so, and then we happened to meet, and, well, we had a rather bitter argument about everything.
Where was this?
In the dining room of the hotel. I was lunching there with some friends.
I see.
It was one of those ridiculous things. We quarreled and parted very angrily. The whole thing was childish. My first impulse was to see a lawyer and demand every unreasonable thing I could on a settlement. I guess his impulse was to cancel me out as his beneficiary.
Did you go to a lawyer?
No. I cooled off.
Do you know what day this was?
The luncheon was a Tuesday affair, I think. Yes.
That fits in all right.
Our parting had been amicable. I mean, Ray and I just didn't get along as husband and wife. But we made it up just before he died. He called me that morning and apologized for his conduct. I apologized to him. I went to see him later at the hotel. He fell out of the window after I left.
Yeah. Well, then, we can assume that this business with the policies had to do with the argument.
I can't think of any other reason.
You had no other heirs?
No? Why?
Well, you see, Mrs. Underwood, it's kind of hard for us to believe that a man involved in divorcing his wife would still name her as his beneficiary.
Why do you say a thing like that?
Well, because of past experience, I suppose. It's unusual.
I see. Of course, I was the last one to see Ray alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have told you that we were reconciled, that we were going to drop the whole matter, that he was going to move back into the house.
Yes, you could have told me that, Mrs. Underwood.
But I didn't. I told you the truth. I haven't lied to you, Mr. Dollar. When Mr. Egan called from Hartford a few days ago, I was very upset. I've never been a widow before. You're still looking at me with a question, Mr. Dollar.
I hate to be stubborn, but I'd still like to know about the other matter.
Why I am still his beneficiary?
Yes. The next morning, I interviewed all the people who had been on duty at the hotel the morning of Underwood's death. Then I dropped in to see Sergeant Hannon once more.
Well, here it is, right here. I went over the room myself with 2 of my men. Personal effects of the deceased included 4 suits of men's clothing, 14 shirts, 5 pair of men's hosiery.
Was there a bottle in there?
Liquor?
Yeah.
Nope.
How about a flask?
Nope, nothing like it. Just a glass.
Hannon, I talked to all the people at the hotel before I came over here. Underwood left a call for 11:30 the morning he died. They called him. 5 minutes later, he phoned the insurance agent in Cheyenne. And that's the only business he conducted all day, outside of calling his home. We know he didn't leave the room, and we know Mrs. Underwood visited him there about 12.
Yeah.
But more important, Underwood didn't call and have a bellboy bring him a bottle. Room service didn't send him any drinks. The chambermaid swears there was no bottle of liquor of any kind in his room all the time he'd lived at the hotel.
Roy didn't drink much.
Well, that adds to it. What light drinker takes a drink before breakfast? He only had time to get up and shave before his wife showed up.
Who said he had a drink?
Mrs. Underwood.
Hmm?
On the witness stand, under oath, she said that her husband had had a couple of drinks. Mind you, she didn't say he was drunk, but she did say he'd been drinking before she got there. You know what I think, Hannon?
What?
I think she just threw that in because it's a little hard to believe that a cold, sober man would walk out of a hotel window and kill himself accidentally. But you and I and everybody else at that coroner's inquest got the impression that Underwood was slightly tipsy. I want to know where he got the drink. I want to know who gave it to him. That's what I want to know. Where'd he get the drink? If he had one.
It's a pretty good question, Dollar.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Every Saturday in the daytime, CBS Radio presents City Hospital, just one of a thrilling lineup of weekend dramatic programs at the Star's address. City Hospital tells gripping stories of life and sometimes death in a great hospital. Tomorrow and every Saturday on most of these same stations, CBS Radio invites you to enjoy City Hospital. Now, with our star John Lund, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
After our talk, Sergeant Hannon agreed that there was enough of a doubt about the circumstances just before Underwood's death to warrant a re-examination of the facts. That was all I needed. I knew that Mrs. Underwood would be questioned and that the pressure would start to build up. I had some pressure of my own. Expense account item 4, $13.25. Another long-distance phone call. This one to Hartford and Red Egan. I explained our position to him.
What?
The best thing right now is to move fast. Deny liability on the grounds that the accident is not proved.
Suppose she sues us.
Let her. The burden of proving that it was an accident would be on her. Red, he didn't have a drink that morning.
All right, she made a mistake. He had a heart attack, got dizzy, and tumbled out of the window.
He might have, sure. But there's no doctor in town able to tell us he had any trouble along those lines. And there's Mrs. Underwood herself.
What about her?
She was ready for that coroner's jury yesterday, and she was ready for me when I called on her last night. The only one she wasn't ready for was you when you phoned her a couple of days ago, and she hung up. She halfway apologized for that. But she really couldn't think of anything to say to you.
Okay, but I want to tell you I don't think the Columbia Insurance people will play it that way. They have a matter of public confidence to think of. Suppose it's a just claim.
I tell you it isn't.
Why? Do you have anything else?
3 things. Instinct, experience, and statistics. She's a young woman. She was married to a wealthy older man. With him out of the way, she has all his money, everything, not just alimony and a property settlement. And what he left her in the way of property and other things, not to mention the insurance, is something to consider. It's the kind of stuff she can go places and do things on.
All right, I'll tell them that. What else?
Tell him I'm working for evidence, and the best way to get it is to bring her out in the open. File a complaint against her to the district attorney's office.
What charge?
Suspected murder.
Johnny, that'd get us a criminal libel suit.
Remember the drink. He didn't have the drink.
All right, but she had an alibi.
She had help. Somebody got into the hotel without being seen and pushed Underwood out of that window.
You're convinced that it's murder?
You bet your boots I am. At 6 o'clock that night, I compared notes with Sergeant Hannon. He reported that after questioning Mrs. Underwood, she admitted that she might have been mistaken about her husband drinking the morning of his death. She wasn't sure. But Hannon said what we both were thinking.
She was sure enough in front of that coroner's jury to give a misleading impression, Dollar. We better find out who helped her pull this off.
Hannon had 16 men working on the case by then. It was a long, tedious job of combing over everything in Alice Underwood's background in order to find a possible accomplice. About 4 o'clock the next afternoon, we interviewed one of the 3 servants in the Underwood home.
That's right, sir. Once or twice a week.
Do you know where she drove to?
I have no idea, sir. She'd generally get up early in the morning and be gone all day.
How do you know she went out of town? Couldn't she just have gone and visited a friend somewhere nearby?
Oh, I suppose so, Mr. Dollar, but then she'd generally take a small suitcase, a change of clothes. You don't take those when you're visiting a friend in town, do you?
You might.
Wait a minute. What car did she take?
The Cadillac. And I knew it'd come back covered with mud and ice. Always have to be washed up.
I see.
Mr. Underwood used to complain about it a whole lot.
About the car?
Oh, no. About the trips. They had some pretty good arguments about them.
Could you repeat anything that was said?
Well, I don't guess I could, word for word.
Do you know what they were about?
Yes, yes. It's about the same all the time. Mr. Underwood said she shouldn't visit that man.
What man?
Just that man. I never knew who it was that they were arguing about.
Uh-huh. How long have you worked for Mr. Underwood?
Me, I've been in this house 13 years, sir.
And you've known Mrs. Underwood quite a long time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, knew her when she was a little girl, when she first came here. Yes, saw her grow up and go away to school and come back and go away to Europe and come back a little more grown up and a little different each time. I've seen her turn into a woman over the years, sir.
Were you surprised when Mr. Underwood married her?
Well, no. Yes, I guess I was. I mean, she always seemed so young compared to him, but then when she was grown up, it was sort of different, so I wasn't surprised at that.
Let me ask you this. Did she seem to fit in here?
You mean when she married him?
Yeah.
Well, before they were sort of, like friends. I mean, they'd ride horses and go hunting and laugh and talk about different things, but she traveled so much and saw so many different things around the world that it didn't seem they were friendly anymore once that they were married. I mean, Mr. Underwood was Wyoming, and Mrs. Underwood, she was, well, different, even though this is her home.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Wait, I feel awful about Mr. Underwood being dead. I've been telling you the things the way I see them, and I know you'll probably hear different stories from everybody. But I'm glad you came and asked me. If there was anything wrong about the way he died, I'd like it to be fixed.
Sure you would.
Mrs. Underwood probably would fire me for talking like this, but no, I don't care. This house isn't the same anymore.
Before the day was out, a complaint had been issued against Alice Underwood on suspicion of murder. However, it was not served immediately, because by that time, Sergeant Hannon's men had discovered the names of 3 men Mrs. Underwood had been seen with at various places around Rexford in the past 3 years. One of them had been killed in the Korean War. One of them had moved to Chicago 14 months before. The third one was a man named Tyler. He operated a sizable ranch about 80 miles from the city limits. We found him loading cattle onto a couple of trucks.
You're trying to find out if I've been seeing her on the sly while she's been married to Ray. Why don't you come right out and ask?
All right, Tyler, I'll ask. Have you?
No, I haven't. There's nothing between us. Any time we were together while she was married to Ray, he knew about it. He's a good friend of mine. I'm sorry he's dead. And Alice is a good friend of mine, too. I'm sorry you people are thinking what you are. Well, come on, let's go up to the house.
Where were you last Thursday, Mr. Tyler?
The day Ray died?
Yeah.
Right here.
Can you prove it?
Say, what is this?
We haven't accused you of anything, Tyler. We're just trying to gather some facts.
Alice is a grand girl. You can put that down as one of your facts. You boys want a drink?
No, thanks.
Not for me, thanks. When was the last time you were in Rexford?
Oh, I haven't been in for the last 6 months. Wait, I was, too. I came in one day around Christmas to do some shopping. Most of the time, my cook or somebody goes in and handles the supplies there.
Okay, Tyler. Mind if we talk to some of your help around here?
No, what do you want to talk to them about?
First, about where you were last Thursday. If you were here, they'd be the logical ones to verify it. Second, about Mrs. Underwood.
What about her?
What we ask you. Just checking it, Tyler. She's been taking trips and visiting somebody around here. We thought maybe it was you.
It wouldn't look good if she was visiting me, is that it?
It depends on the circumstances.
Yeah. Tell me something, will you? Have you taken any action against her yet?
Not yet.
My company's filed a complaint. Suspicion of murder.
I see. I'd like to tell you something.
Okay.
Both of you know her, huh?
Yeah.
Her daddy was a drunk. When he died, Ray took over and gave her everything. If it hadn't been for him, she'd have been tossing hash in some restaurant around here, kidding the customers and married to a truck driver.
What's this got to do
Let
with
me go on. Sure, she loved Ray for giving her all that. But any woman needs more than that kind of love. I lied to you a few minutes ago. There was something between us. It was bound to happen to me or somebody else closer to her age. I was glad when she and Ray finally decided to be divorced. It was my chance to marry her. You can talk to my people around here. They'd lie for me and say I was here last Thursday all day, and they'd tell you that Dallas never came here to see me. They'd lie right on down the line for me, but I can't let you take her into custody for something I did. Something she didn't have anything to do with. I killed Ray Underwood.
How did it happen, Tyler?
I didn't mean to. One of my trucks was delivering some beef to the restaurant at the hotel. I rode in with the driver and went in the back way. I went right up to Ray's room because I wanted to talk to him.
What about? Wasn't the divorce settled?
Yeah, it was all set. All set. He called me the night before, and he'd been kind of sore about Allison. I just wanted to go in and tell him what I told you. We didn't plan to fall in love. We didn't want to hurt him. We both loved him. When I got to his room, he wouldn't let me talk at all. He tried to swing on me. So I shoved him, and he went out the window. That's all.
Expense account item 5, $38.15. Hotel and food while in Rexford. Item 6, same as 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $491.50. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as
Johnny Dollar.
We're ready on your call to Boston. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes?
Mr. Semplin?
Yes, but I don't believe I remember you, Mr. Dollar.
Oh, we've never met. Your company hired me here in Hartford to investigate the Jeanne Maxwell death.
Oh? It's odd that they didn't advise me.
Oh, they probably will. I called you to find out the name of the officer in the charge of the case, if you could give it to me.
Well, it's a, Lieutenant DeRosa.
DeRosa, huh? Do you happen to know what their theory is, if any?
Theory? Well, I don't think they've arrived at a definite theory.
Still a toss-up between murder and suicide, huh? Okay, Mr. Semplin. I'll be in touch.
John Lund in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Corinthian Life Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Jeanne Maxwell matter. Expense account item 1, $175. Phone call to Boston advising your manager there of my assignment. Item 2, $28. Car rental and mileage for my Hartford apartment to Police Headquarters, Boston.
What's the matter, Dollar? Don't you trust us?
It's not up to me to distrust you, Lieutenant. But these insurance people get uneasy when there's a choice between suicide and murder. Unless the murder motive is the policy.
And you don't think there's a chance of that?
Well, I wouldn't say definitely not, but the Maxwell girl made her mother her beneficiary. And her mother's an invalid in a rest home.
Did you know the mother had taken up with an old flame?
No, I didn't.
Goes to see her a couple, 3 times a week. Crazier things have happened. I'll get the file. Sit down.
Well, this is all we've got so far, pending coroner's inquest and autopsy report. Here's a photo of where she was found.
Shallow water. That's the bridge?
Yeah, she was lying right about there. But I don't think you have to worry about suicide, Dollar. As far as I'm concerned, it wasn't.
I'll buy that, too. Wouldn't say this bridge is a suicide type. It's too low.
Yeah, and there's another thing. I've been on the force for more years than I like to count. I've run into my share of suicides. Never known a woman to do it this way without taking off her coat.
Oh?
Usually shoes, too. I've learned that's part of a generally accepted pattern.
The Maxwell girl didn't fit the pattern.
Well, here's the way she looked. Coat on, belt still tied, shoes. Purse is missing. Searching the stream for it.
How old was she?
21.
She was a beautiful girl.
I noticed that. I'm trying not to, but with her I couldn't help it.
How much questioning have you done, Lieutenant?
Not much, or rather not as much as we'll do after the inquest.
When'll that be?
The day after tomorrow. You want anything more here?
No, thanks, Lieutenant. I'll check with you later. I drove out to the stream where they'd found the girl's body, and there I chalked up another point against her death being a suicide. The bridge from which she had dropped was a good 4 miles from town. Boston had better bridges to offer within the city limits. I followed the riverbank and found the approximate spot from which the police photograph had been snapped. On the assumption that she'd been brought there in a car, the placement of her body in relation to the 2 lanes on the bridge made it look as if the car was going toward Boston and not away from it. 5 minutes later, I was heading the same way.
Hello?
Miss Mary O'Neill?
Yeah.
The manager suggested I come up. He told me you shared this apartment with Jeanne Maxwell.
That's right. Who are you?
Well, my name is Dollar. I'm from her insurance company. I'd like to talk to you about her if I could.
I suppose so, but there's nothing I can do now. This is the biggest shock I ever had. I always said there'd be trouble, but I never thought she'd do anything like this.
Maybe she didn't.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, there are signs that say maybe she didn't commit suicide.
There are?
Do you think she had any reason to?
That's what I said. I never thought she would. Oh, sit down. Any place.
Thanks. Did you say you expected trouble?
Yeah. I kept telling her. It was the way she went. Like she couldn't live fast enough. Like there wasn't enough time to get everything done. She'd been like that ever since she got rid of... her mother went into that hospital. Jeanne was all tied down, taking care of her before.
What could have caused trouble?
Well, I'm not saying she was wrong or anything. But there were too many men.
Do you mind telling me who they are?
I don't know. Only about one, Harold Corey. He's gone with her the longest. He's a big blonde truck driver.
Harold Corey.
He drives for the Seaboard Trucking Company. Sometimes he goes way out to the West Coast. And while he was gone, Jeanne didn't stay home and catch up on her reading, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think I do.
Out with a different guy almost every night. I didn't pry, but she'd never tell me who they were. You think somebody killed her, don't you?
Would you help me try to find out?
What could I do?
Well, you didn't want to pry, but I get paid to. I'd like to look at her things.
I suppose it's my duty, sort of, isn't it?
In a way, yeah, but I can't force you to.
Oh, I know it's the thing to do. Some of her drawers are locked, but I'll show you what I can.
I started on the locked dresser drawers. They gave up and opened after a brief struggle, but contained on the whole things that might normally be locked up because of their value. Imported perfumes, expensive lingerie, and some jewelry. Only thing that looked as if it might have been hidden for the sake of secrecy was under the jewel box. It was a gold house key with a heart-shaped bow.
I never saw that before. Never saw the perfume before either, but I smelled it.
That's a few $100 worth of scent. And the rest of it there. Was Jeanne used to such expensive things?
Not that I knew about. Harold Corey sure couldn't shell out that kind of money. And that heart-shaped key. That's cozy.
I'd like to keep it if I could.
Oh, I don't know about that. After all, it isn't mine. I might get into trouble.
Oh, you won't, I promise you. I'm working with the police on this thing. I want to find out where it was made, if I can, and who ordered it.
Oh, I get it. Sure, I wouldn't stop you from doing that, even if I could.
A phone call to the Seaboard Trucking Company gave me the information that Harold Corey was out on a run to Philadelphia. It was expected about 3 in the morning. Expense account item 3, $7. Drinks and dinner after I checked into the Bristol Hotel. Item 4, 1 dime. Phone call to Jeanne Maxwell's employer. Edward Hollis was at home and would see me.
Come into the living room, Mr. Dollar. You may as well be comfortable.
It's nice of you to see me, Mr. Hollis. I thought it would be better to do it this way rather than bother you at work.
Of course, and I appreciate it. The atmosphere at the office has been gloomy enough. Oh, this is Mrs. Hollis, Mr. Dollar.
Well, how do you do?
Quite well, thank you. I didn't know the poor girl, but it's a dreadful thing.
Yes, I'm afraid it is.
I simply don't understand. A young girl like that with everything to live for.
May even be worse than that.
Worse? How could it be worse?
Looks more and more like her death was not a suicide.
Mr. Dollar.
I didn't mention it on the phone. The police think it was murder. So do I. I thought it'd be better to save the blow until I got here. Murder's pretty messy.
I can't believe this. Why do they think that?
Well, almost intuition, not quite. They know how people commit suicide. On an average, all suicides do certain things. The Maxwell girl didn't do any of them.
Well, this is a shock. I suppose I could be dragged into a courtroom along with everybody else who knew her. Beatrice, you run along upstairs. There's no reason for you going through this.
All right, Edward. I think I'd rather. Good night, Mr. Dollar.
Good night. I'm sorry, but it couldn't be helped.
Of course it couldn't. I understand. Please don't be long, Edward.
No, I won't, dear. Could I mix you a drink, Mr. Dollar?
No, thanks. I'll make this as fast as possible. I don't know how much you knew about Jeanne Maxwell's private life.
I knew nothing. I have a number of girls in the office, and it's been my philosophy to remember that not too long ago I was young, too. As long as they do their work well, I ask no questions. As a matter of fact, I have no right to.
Sure. From what I've gathered, she was mixed up emotionally. She didn't have much freedom because of an invalid mother she took care of.
Yes, I did know that.
When the mother went into a hospital, Jeanne began to make up for lost time. She led her friends to believe that she was friendly with a lot of men. But I don't believe that.
Oh?
I think it was one man. One with enough money to buy her expensive things, perfumes, jewelry, even a gold key.
I'll have to admit that she was a beautiful thing.
You say she worked with a number of girls at your office?
Yes, there were 11 others.
Out of those 11, did she have any close friends that you know of?
Well, let's see. The Dyer girl, Grace, that is. They seemed to be quite friendly. I couldn't be sure of any others.
Well, would you give me all their names then? I'd like to talk to them. You know, find out if something might have come out over lunch or cocktails.
Yes, of course. Perhaps it'd be better if you phoned me at the office in the morning. I could give you their addresses as well.
All right, we'll do it that way. Well, thanks very much, Mr. Hollis. I'm sorry meeting you couldn't have been more pleasant. The next morning, I had a list of 11 feminine names and the address of Jeanne Maxwell's truck driving friend. By 10:30, I was following up the ladder.
Come back later. I can't see anybody now.
I'm an investigator from Jeanne Maxwell's insurance company. I want to talk to you about her.
Wait a minute.
Sorry to bother you. My name is Dollar.
Come on in. I've been out of town. I didn't know about what happened until I got the paper this morning. It's really got me rocking.
Yeah, I can understand that.
How much do you know about it? Why'd she do it?
She didn't.
What do you mean by that?
It's not suicide, it's murder.
Murder?
You knew her pretty well, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, pretty well.
Did you buy gifts for her?
Oh, once in a while. Birthday, Christmas, times like that.
What kind of gifts?
What are you driving at?
Can't you remember?
Oh, yeah. Candy, handkerchiefs, things like that. I don't think I like your approach, mister.
Now, calm down, Corey. I'm giving you a chance to rehearse before the police get at you. When did you see her last?
Night before I left for Philadelphia.
When was that?
2 nights ago, Tuesday. I left at 5 Wednesday morning.
She was found Wednesday morning.
I know that.
You're in a bad spot. Do you know that?
You telling me people think I killed her? Me? Why, I loved her. I wanted to marry her.
I'm sorry, friend. In this situation, that's a motive, not an alibi.
Get out of here, will you? Get out and leave me alone.
You're not helping yourself with this act. You're making it worse.
Get out. Get out before I do have a murder to answer for. Get out!
Lieutenant DeRosa.
This is Dollar, Lieutenant. I just left a friend of the Maxwell girl. Name of Harold Corey.
Dollar, I've been kicking myself on not getting the name of your hotel yesterday.
I didn't have one then. Well, I've got a few things to pass along to you now.
Oh, that's what I meant. If I could have located you, I could have saved you the trouble.
What do you mean?
The death was suicide after all.
What? How come?
Autopsy report. There was a concussion from the drop from the bridge, but it wasn't the cause of death.
Hey, wait a minute. Not so fast.
The cause of death was carbon monoxide. Looks like she pulled the suicide where it embarrassed somebody, and her body was tossed from the bridge to get her out of the way.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Tomorrow night, Gangbusters brings you authentic, hard-hitting proof that crime does not pay. All the facts right out of police files. The program names names and describes actual manhunts just as they took place. It's a Saturday evening event for adventure fans right here on CBS Radio. Don't miss Gangbusters, tomorrow night over most of these same CBS radio stations. Gangbusters. Now, with our star, John Lund, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Come on in. All right, Dollar, sit down.
Thanks. This, new theory of yours.
What's the matter? Don't you like it?
Well, I thought I was making progress in the other direction. Give it to me again, will you?
Yeah. Here's the autopsy report. Death by asphyxia caused by presence of large amounts of carbon monoxide. Agent unknown. That's it. Probably automobile exhaust. It's the most popular these days.
You believe this, Lieutenant?
I believe what's in the report.
And how did you say she got into the river?
Oh, I said maybe she committed suicide somewhere so that somebody would get involved. To get rid of her, she was probably dumped in the stream. What's the matter, Dollar? I thought you'd be happy with the suicide evidence.
The insurance company hired me to dig up the facts. If it was suicide, all right. But if it wasn't, they want to know that, too. And I still don't think it was.
Why not?
From what I've learned, she wasn't the type. She liked to be alive. And she played it hard enough to leave some motives lying around. Jealousy, for one.
That boyfriend of hers, Corey?
He's a possibility. I talked to him, and for my money, he deserves checking. And then there's this.
What does this unlock?
I wish I could tell you. It was undoubtedly given to her by somebody. I'd like to know who. You think you could put a couple of men on it? Find out where it was made?
All right, Dollar. I'll stick my neck out that far for you. I'm Underwood, as you know. I'll have to be assigned before I can investigate.
Sure, I understand.
Well, I'll take your story upstairs and see what the brass says. Let me know what else you find, huh?
Yeah, I will. Oh, do you have the address of the old flame you mentioned? The mother's friend?
Still like to settle for fraud, wouldn't you? Now, the desk sergeant will give it to you. His name's Paul Anderson.
I'm from Jeanne Maxwell's insurance company, Mr. Anderson. Wonder if you could spare me a few minutes.
Yes, I suppose so. Come in. You're the adjuster? So soon?
I'm an investigator.
Oh? I didn't know she had a policy.
Yeah, she did. $25,000 to go to her mother.
I see.
But her death has been classed as suicide, which voids the policy. The 2-year self-destruction clause is still in effect.
That's a pity.
Why do you say that?
It's the least you could have done for poor Mildred.
That's her mother?
Yes. An extremely young mother who has almost ruined her life for that girl.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, the daughter was born when Mildred was only 17, and she was left to care for the child herself. I've helped as much as I could. Oh, I don't want you to misunderstand. There's nothing to be hidden. I suppose it is unusual. I did meet Jeanne first. But when she took me to her home and I met her mother, I realized that Jeanne was no more than a cheap little opportunist. The complete opposite from her mother. As I say, I suppose it is unusual.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any difference. The point is that you dropped the girl in favor of her mother. Is that it?
It wasn't the gross situation you evidently wish it had been. Now, look here, this has gone far enough. You've asked me these questions for one reason, so that you can draw your own conclusions. Haven't you?
I didn't know it showed.
Well, it does. You think I sent Mildred to the home to get her out of the way, don't you? Well, that's not the case, but you can think what you like. Go ask Mildred if you care to.
I won't bother her. Do you know anything about a gold key that Jeanne had?
A gold key? No, I don't know anything about a gold key. I've known very little about Jeanne at all these past months.
Yeah. So many people seem to know so little about her.
Hello, Mr. Dollar. I've been wondering how you were making out.
How are you, Mary? The police been here yet?
No. I'll be scared to death if they do come. I feel guilty the minute one looks at me.
That's common enough. Have you remembered anything that might help?
No, not a thing, Mr. Dollar. I hardly slept last night. It's creepy. With her room just like it was the last time she left it. I've got to either move or get somebody else in there.
Yeah. Mary, did Jeanne ever mention a Paul Anderson to you?
Anderson? No, I don't think so. Not that I can remember, anyway. She was always kind of secret about things.
She did talk to you about her mother, though.
Oh, a little, yeah, about her being in the hospital.
Anything about how she got there?
No, except I got the idea Jeannie thought it was wrong, how much fun she was having without her mother to worry about.
She never told you who was paying the bills?
No, who was? This Anderson guy?
Yeah. You sure she never mentioned him?
I'm sure I'd remember if she did, because I was curious and she never mentioned any of them.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. It was 4 p.m. then, and at 5, I was standing in front of the Seaboard Trucking Company building on Columbus Avenue as Harold Corey backed a big rig into a parking area and headed for a short-order restaurant across the street. Hello, Corey.
What this time?
The dispatcher tells me you're going out on another run. Pretty short layover, isn't it?
Yeah. You decided to look into the way I do my work?
Oh, I just wondered if there was a reason for this quick run.
Yeah, there is. I asked for it. I figured driving, I could get my mind off this thing. Anything wrong with that?
Maybe not. You know how she died?
I read about it. Carbon monoxide.
Yeah. The police have decided that doesn't sound much like murder. What do you think?
She's dead. That's as far as I can think.
You knew about Paul Anderson, didn't you?
What about Paul?
Well, that he might have been more interested in Jeanne than he was in her mother.
I suppose you're just doing a job, aren't you? Well, if what you say is true, I didn't know about it. If I had known about it, I would have killed him, not Jeanne. Now leave me alone, mister. I can't take any more.
Well, I don't enjoy it either. As you say, I'm just doing a job. I checked that night with 6 of the 11 girls who had worked, lunched, and chatted with Jeanne Maxwell. Their collective description was of a girl who listened to and enjoyed what other people said, but had little to offer herself. None of them knew anything about her private life. But the next morning, the police located a goldsmith who said he remembered making the heart-shaped key. I went out to see him, then got back to Lieutenant DeRosa.
How'd you make out with that fussy little man, Dollar?
Well, we found the day the key was ordered, and he remembered a few things, because a councilman's wife came in the same day.
What?
The customer, J.E. Carter was the name he gave, mentioned a cottage on the bay. That's east. The girl's body was found northwest of here. I think she was dumped from a car coming toward Boston from out there. So, I think the cottage is in that direction.
Deduction yet.
Well, if I were going to dump a body, I wouldn't carry it through town to take it to that bridge, would you?
I'm being paid to think about another case. I couldn't sell the murder pitch upstairs, but I tried, and I'll buck for promotion if you're right and upstairs is wrong.
I don't suppose you could earn that promotion by assigning some men to cover that northwestern section, could you?
Not a chance. That's county. Division of responsibility.
Yeah. And we'd all be surprised to know how many criminals take advantage of that. Expense account item 4. $35, mileage. Covering a 2.5-day canvass of real estate offices northwest of town. Object, a cottage probably rented previous to the month of June by a man possibly using the name J.E. Carter. It was a vague lead that meant morning to night legwork, but on the third afternoon, it paid off.
Yeah, we don't rent much up here, as I remember. She was a dark-haired girl, is that right?
That's right.
Yes, the Anson place out on Butch Road.
Has anybody been there in the past few days?
Not that I know about. It used to be there every 2-3 days, too.
How was the rent paid? Cash or check?
By, cashier's check.
Or was it regular? Definite day of the month, I mean? And do you know the bank?
Yeah, between the 1st and 5th of each month since May. Check on the commercial bank.
Oh, thanks. Now, I'd like to ask one more favor. Would you take me out to the cottage?
I certainly will. If it's a police affair, I'm not the one to stand in the way. Well, Mr. Dollar, I've always said that I personally vouch for the people I do business with. But you never know, do you?
That's a profound truth in any business.
I'll certainly try to be more careful in the future. Do you want to go now?
Yeah, I think I've seen enough. Let me lock it. I want to see if this key fits.
It fit.
Yeah, it did.
Well, I didn't expect to see you again.
Didn't you, Mr. Hollis? You thought you'd get away with it?
What did you say?
Well, there's no reason to be clever with each other. I know you killed her. You rented a cottage out beyond Mystic River. You used the name J.E. Carter.
Come into the other room. Yes, you're right. I did become infatuated with her. If you'd known her, you'd understand. I realized last week that it had to stop, and I told her. She'd been with that young Corey boy. I told her that even if I were single and eligible to marry her, I would advise her to hang on to him. Someone her own age.
That was last Tuesday night.
Yes. She left the cottage, and I heard her drive off. Or at least I thought I did. When I went out, I learned what she'd really done. She'd committed suicide in the car. You can hardly blame me for wanting to keep the secret.
It wasn't suicide, Mr. Hollis. You know it, and I know it.
All right, Mr. Dollar. I'll make my statement to the police.
Fine. I'll drive you down.
Thank you.
Edward.
Beatrice, go back upstairs.
No, Edward, I won't.
I insist, Beatrice.
What good would it do? After what I've done because I lost you, why should you ask me to go upstairs while I lose you again?
I forbid you to say another word.
Mr. Dollar. She had taken him away from me because she was beautiful, and I no longer am. I was waiting in their cottage. When they came in, I struck her.
Is this true, Mrs. Hollis?
Yes. I killed her. And since there was nothing left of our lives, we carried her to the guard.
It was... What have I done? What have I done?
Expense account item 5, $110. Final bill for car rental. Item 6, $85 miscellaneous. Expense account total, $266.85. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Eddie Dunstetter. John Lund can currently be seen in the Universal International picture Just Across the Street. Featured in tonight's cast were Jeanette Nolan, Howard McNear, Ted DeCorsia, Virginia Gregg, John McIntyre, Barney Phillips, and Dick Ryan. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Coverly, inviting you to join us next week at the same time when John Lund returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
And remember, Tarzan brings you his adventures Saturday evenings on the CBS Radio Network.
John Lund as... Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Eastern Indemnity and Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the King's Necklace matter. Expense account item 1, $134.70. Airfare and incidentals between Hartford and Miami. Waiting at the airport, as promised, was your Southern States Agency manager, Marty Fenton. Over a cup of brew in the coffee shop, he briefed me on the assignment.
Ever hear of King Rawlings, Johnny?
King Rawlings? Financial tycoon, wasn't he? Retired some 15, 20 years ago?
That's the lad. About a year ago, he wrote a policy on a $250,000 necklace that he owns.
Which has suddenly turned up among the missing?
Not yet.
You expect it to?
Well, we got a letter from him day before yesterday. Claims somebody attempted to break into his safe. Thinks they were after the necklace.
Well, I'm usually sent for after the crime's been committed.
True, my lad, true. Oh, pass the sugar, will you, please?
Sure. So what am I doing here now?
The policy's coming up for renewal, Johnny. And there have been nasty rumors circulating around about Rawlings' present financial condition.
Afraid he's starting a build-up to put in a fraudulent claim?
It's been done before. The boys in Hartford get pretty stuffy about that kind of skullduggery. Now, we want you to check around Los Banos and see what you come up with.
Is that where the gentle sea breezes waft through the palm trees?
2,000 imported ones. Los Banos is Rawlings' own personal island off the coast of Cuba. He's lived there for 20 years, surrounded by his memories, his trees, and his collection.
Of precious stones?
people.
Mr. Johnny Dollar is one of the...
Oh, your plane's waiting, Johnny. I hired a little amphib to fly
Let's
you
not
down.
brush off the collection of people, Marty.
Who am I to prejudice a stalwart investigator about to brave the dangers of Rawlings Isle? On your way, lad. May the blessings of Eastern indemnity follow you even unto the ends of Los Baños.
After 1.5 hours of white clouds and blue sky, the plane put down in an even bluer sea and taxied over to a landing dock on a picture book island. King Rawlings had collected palm trees, all right, but I didn't know about the people. From where I stood, there was nothing to be seen but the landing dock, a gravel path, and those trees. The path led through a seemingly deserted tangle of exotic flowers, sweet-scented vines, and the ever-present palm trees. It was like a tropical paradise, peaceful, serene, untouched by men. I just about decided that nobody on this island ever made use of this lush garden spot when I learned that I couldn't have been more wrong.
Over here, please.
Well, hello, wherever you are.
Over here, in the clearing to your right. Hello. Who are you?
My name's Johnny Dollar.
I am Nita Valdez, Mr. Dollar.
I'm glad to know you, Miss Valdez.
You are the man who arrived on the plane a few minutes ago, no?
I didn't think anyone had heard. The hospitality is overwhelming.
You will become accustomed to it. Everyone here is too occupied with himself to bother concerning anyone else. Like me, I have been too busy sunbathing.
Yes, so I noticed.
If it bothers you, you could hand me my robe.
Oh, no, that won't be necessary.
Sit down, Mr. Dollar.
Thanks.
You have come to see the king about the attempt to steal his necklace?
Apparently, sunbathing hasn't interfered with your learning about that.
You obviously do not know King Rawlings very well.
Why do you say that?
Everyone on this island has been accused of attempting the theft.
Including you?
Why should I be an exception?
Oh, just wondering.
Because I'm young and beautiful, you think perhaps I hold some special place of esteem in King Rawlings' affections?
Well, do you?
Can you reach that bottle of suntan lotion?
Yeah, sure.
The back of my shoulders. Would you mind? It is a difficult place for me to reach.
Oh, I'll be glad to.
About the necklace, Mr. Dollar, I would not be too concerned about it if I were you.
Oh? Why not?
Well, if anyone had actually made an attempt to steal it, the king knows who he is.
But he still accused everybody here, huh?
It affords him a great deal of pleasure to make others squirm and be uncomfortable.
You don't like him very much, do you?
I hate him.
Then why do you stay here?
Same reason as everyone else. Money. Oh, that will do nicely, thank you.
You're welcome. Do you mind explaining that bit about money, Miss Valdez?
Later, perhaps. The sun is still warm, and I wish to take advantage of it. We will meet again.
A polite dismissal, if I ever heard one.
You're wondering, perhaps, why I stopped you to talk this way?
The thought had occurred to me, yes.
When you meet the king, get to know him a little, I think you will understand why.
And if I don't?
I sunbathe here every day at this time.
I'll think about that, too. I found that Rawlings, like all good kings, lived in a castle. This one, obviously imported, stone by stone, from some Moorish province. A nervous little man came to the main gate and escorted me inside to the baronial hall.
Harley is my name, Mr. Dollar. Timothy B. Harley. I'm Mr. Rawlings' secretary. In here, please. Mr. Rawlings' study. He'll be down to join you shortly.
Thanks, Mr. Harley.
I presume you're here about the necklace, Mr. Dollar?
A favorite topic of conversation around here, isn't it?
I beg your pardon?
The necklace.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, under the circumstances, you see, the attempted theft and all, it, has someone else mentioned it to you?
Any reason why they shouldn't?
Oh, no, not at all. No, it was just that, well, was it Nita Valdez by any chance?
What makes you think so?
Oh, nothing. Oh, no, nothing at all. Only, you see, it was, well, to tell you the truth, I've suspected something for a long time. It's come to my attention.
You talk too much, Harley.
Oh, Mr. Rawlings. Oh, I didn't hear you come in. I was just telling
Get out.
Oh, well, of course, Mr. Rawlings, of course.
You're from the insurance company?
That's right, Johnny Dollar.
Why you instead of Marty Fenton?
He's an agent. I'm a special investigator.
I didn't request an investigation.
You made a report of an attempted robbery.
What do you want me to do? Have you declare the policy void because I didn't?
What do you want us to do? Thank you for letting us pay out $250,000 if the necklace turns up missing?
Over here, darling. There's the safe I keep it in.
Pretty substantial job.
Fenton supervised the installation himself.
Those scratches near the combination, those what made you think somebody tried to force it?
Only a hammer and chisel could make those marks.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to see the necklace.
Good.
Who do you think was after it?
Either Harley or my protege, Anita Valdez.
Why suspect them?
They love money and hate me.
You care to go into that?
You're investigating the necklace, Dollar, not my relationships with the people on this island. There it is.
Oh. Beautiful workmanship.
What else did you expect for $250,000?
A little more than this, Rawlings.
Hmm?
I'm no expert on precious stones, but 10 will get you 20 if these aren't paste.
Let me see. You're right, they are.
Any explanations?
None.
You've no idea how the switch was pulled?
I have not.
When was the last time the necklace was appraised?
When the policy was written?
Who else has the combination of this safe?
No one.
Oh. Kind of puts you in a spot, doesn't it?
Not at all. I'm insured.
The law says we don't have to pay off on fraudulent claims.
I know. The law also says you have to prove that fraud exists.
I broke the news to Marty and looked around for something to improve the shining hours while waiting for him to arrive. I found it, dressed in a clinging silk gown on a patio overlooking the sea. It was obviously the cocktail hour. Mind if I join you?
Oh, please do.
I can't make up my mind.
To what, Mr. Dollar?
Which shows you off to greater advantage, that dress or the sunsuit?
For that, you may have a choice of rewards. Scotch or martini?
Nothing, thanks.
Well, what did you think of him?
The king?
Yes.
I'm more interested in what you think of him.
I have already told you.
I know. He confirmed your statement.
That I hate him?
Mm-hmm.
You can believe it.
I do. What I want to know is why.
King Rawlings is a collector.
Stamps, butterflies, out-of-state license
of
plates?
People, Mr. Dollar.
How does this fascinating game of his work?
He specializes in aspiring artists with little or no talent. An actress like myself, a would-be poet like Harley. He baits his trap with the promise of money to aid their careers, keeps them dangling as long as they can amuse him and feed his ego. Then he casts them off.
Very amusing.
Yes, isn't it?
But if you know what he is, why stay on?
Oh, it's much easier to cling even to a remnant of a dream than to face the harshness of reality.
How tough would it be to face reality with $250,000?
The necklace is gone?
Does that surprise you?
No. It was too great a temptation.
For you or Harley?
For either of us, if we had known the combination to that safe. No, Mr. Dollar, it was the king himself who was tempted.
Well, that doesn't figure. Not with his money.
If he still has it.
Why do you think he hasn't?
What other answer could there be?
Might be interesting to try to find out.
Oh, you would be wasting your time, Mr. Dollar.
I've got some to spare.
Perhaps I could find use for it.
I don't have any money.
Oh, that was rather cruel.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Dollar, is that you? Oh, yes, of course it is, yes.
Why the excitement, Harley?
Tell me, is it true that the necklace has been stolen?
Looks like it. Why?
I wonder if that could possibly account for it.
For what?
Mr. Rawlings, he's lying on the second-floor landing. I think he's dead.
Timothy B. Harley couldn't have been more right. King Rawlings was lying stone cold dead on the second-floor landing. When Marty Fenton flew in 3 hours later, accompanied by a Captain Fuentes of the Havana Police, I gave them a fast briefing. Marty's reaction was predictable.
Nobody gets off this island until we learn what's happened to that necklace. Right, Captain Fuentes?
Yes, I agree, Senor Fenton. Up to a certain point.
What point? What do you mean?
The good captain apparently feels there might be something more important about all this than a missing necklace.
What could be more important than $250,000 in stolen jewels?
How about murder?
Never entered my mind.
Naturally not. Eastern Indemnity only insured Rawlings' stones, not his life.
I guess I had that coming.
Senor Dollar is quite correct, however. The cause of Senor Rawlings' death is not apparent at the moment. It will require an autopsy to determine.
And if it's murder?
We must then regard everyone who was present upon this island with suspicion. What help can you give us regarding that, Senor Dollar?
Well, just what I've told you. Outside of the servants, only Harley, Miss Valdez, and I were among those present.
And who was the last to see Senor Rawlings alive?
So far as I know, I was. But Harley could have been with him after Rawlings left me in the study. For that matter, Miss Valdez could have seen him, too, before our little tete-a-tete on the patio.
Look, fellows, me lads, I don't want to appear single-minded about this little affair, but we don't know whether Rawlings was murdered or not. However, we do know Eastern Indemnity's out a cool 250 G's if that necklace doesn't turn up.
Payable, of course, to Senor Rawlings' estate.
Sure, but who cares who it's payable to? What I'm interested in is not paying it.
Thinking of possible motives, Captain?
The heir to Senor Rawlings' fortune might well be suspect.
So would whoever stole the necklace, if Rawlings had tumbled to him.
And there's always plain hate, isn't there?
You have something specific in mind, Senor Dollar?
Just a suggestion, Captain. Fuentes had his plane fly Rawlings' body back to Havana for posting, while he conducted a very thorough, if unenlightening, questioning of those present. Apparently, no one had seen Rawlings after he left me in the study, had any idea how he died, or what had happened to that necklace. Fuentes knocked off around midnight, and everyone ostensibly went to bed. I still had a few unanswered questions kicking around, so I went up to Harley's room to try them out.
Why, yes, Mr. Dollar. Mr. Rawlings had a will, but as I told Captain Fuentes, it's locked in the safe.
And it'll take a court order and some professional safecrackers to get at it, I know. But what about the copy?
Copy?
It's customary for the attorney who drew it up to retain a copy.
Oh, yes, of course. I hadn't thought. Senor Chavez must have one in Havana.
He's an attorney there?
Yes. As a matter of fact, he handled most of Mr. Rawlings' financial affairs. Well, he must have a copy. Oh, why don't you ask him?
Oh, I will. But first, I'd like to know why you were planning to leave Los Baños.
Leave it? Well, how did you know?
Well, maybe you can think of another reason for having a half-filled suitcase laying there on your bed.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes. I was planning to leave. There's no reason why I shouldn't. After all, my employment here has been terminated.
Have you discussed the idea with Captain Fuentes?
Well, no, but why should he object? I'm not guilty of anything.
Just a thought, Harley. Mind if I take a look at that suitcase?
No, don't touch that. I don't.
Well, what do you know? A brown paper parcel neatly wrapped and tied. You mind telling me what's in it?
It's none of your business. Put that down.
It wouldn't be a necklace by any chance, would it?
Put it down, Dollar.
Oh, sure, right away. Well, now that's interesting. All new, crisp, in $100 denominations. Must be close to $10,000 here.
Well, what of it? It's mine.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I'm just wondering where you got it.
I saved it.
Working for Rawlings?
Yes, why not? I saved it working for Rawlings. It's mine.
Okay, Harley. I don't want it. Don't you really know why Captain Fuentes might object to your leaving now?
No. I most certainly don't.
Remarkable. There wasn't anything I could do before morning rolled around except smoke a last cigarette and try to think things out. So I went out in the same patio where Anita and I had had our talk and lit up. The one cigarette turned into two. Then I started to light a third one. That was a mistake. I saw the muzzle flash. It came from somewhere inside a clump of palm trees. But with a full moon behind me, I wasn't going to get heroic about it. I made a dive for a concrete retaining wall. I didn't think the shots I'd snapped out had done any good, and I had no intention of finding out, not with that moon lighting things up. So I made myself comfortable with my back to the wall and waited for the Cuban Marines in the person of Captain Fuentes to come charging to the rescue. Some 15 minutes later, Marty, the captain, and I held a council of war on our way down to the landing docks.
I found these two empty shells under one of the palm trees, Senor Dollar. But that was all. No trace of the person who fired them.
What about Harley?
He's not in his room. So far, I've been unable to locate him.
Hardly seems reasonable, Johnny. What could be so important about that money you saw to make him want to kill you?
I don't know that he did, Marty. But I'd like to ask him a couple of questions about it.
But why come down here to the boathouse, Senor?
Well, with your plane gone, there's only one way off this island. Rawlings speedboats. We'd better make sure they're locked up tight.
One of the slips is empty.
It wasn't when I got here.
We heard no motor, Senor.
Well, that's nothing that a paddle and a pair of willing arms can't explain.
Harley?
That's my guess.
And it's 10-1 he has the necklace with him.
Expense account item 2, $5.65. Breakfast for two in Havana, where Martin Fenton and I found the bougainvillea and the tourist rates in full bloom. We wanted to talk to Senor Chavez, Rawlings' lawyer, and after a rough trip on one of the speedboats and that rougher breakfast tab, we made our way to his office.
See, I have a copy of Senor Rawlings' will, but you understand I cannot disclose its contents until the court so order.
Well, we don't want any details, Senor Chavez.
Huh? But I understood you were inquiring about beneficiaries.
All we want to know is if he left anything to a Timothy Harley or Anita Valdez.
I see.
Well, we've explained the circumstances, Senor Chavez. It can't violate any professional ethics to give us a yes or no to those two names.
No, I do not believe it is unethical to tell you this much. No individuals were named in the will. Only charitable and public welfare institutions.
Well, that eliminates the heir apparent angle, Johnny.
One more thing, Senor Chavez. There have been rumors that Rawlings' fortune was almost gone. Any truth to them?
Not a bit. All his investments were most judiciously placed. He was perhaps wealthier at the time of his death than at any time during his life.
Well, you've been a big help. Thanks.
For now, it is an attorney's duty to aid the law, is it not? Any time you are here in Havana, please to stop in. It would be my pleasure.
Will do, Senor Chavez, and thanks again. Well, it was a great help.
Cleaned up some loose ends.
It's a loose necklace I'm worried about, Johnny. Where do we go from here?
Well, we can check out the local police, see if they've picked up anything on Harley.
Good as anything, I guess. Oh, which way?
We passed it on the way up here. We'll go right...
Senor Dollar, it is most fortunate that you're still here. There is a phone call for you in my office from the island of Los Baños.
Oh, thanks, Senor Chavez.
There on my desk, senor.
Johnny Dollar.
This is Captain Fuentes, Senor Dollar. I have some information for you.
Oh? What is it, Captain?
First of all,
The autopsy report on Senor Rawlings has come in.
Natural death?
See, that is correct. From an old aggravated heart condition. But how did you know?
No real reason for anybody to murder him. What else?
We have found Senor Harley's body at the north end of the island. Apparently his motor stopped and the surf dashed him against the rocks. His skull was fractured.
You didn't find the necklace on him?
No, but he is the one who stole it.
What makes you think so?
In his wallet, we found a slip of paper, Senor. On it was written the combination of the safe.
Expense account item 3, $35. Transportation of speedboat back to Los Bernes. With Captain Fuente's report, there was no need to report directly to the island, and Marty was anxious to get back to the office and bring you up to date. So he chartered a plane, and we took off for Miami.
Well, Johnny, my lad, we chalk up another happy collaboration, huh?
Yeah, you might call it that, Marty.
A king there was. You know, somehow I don't think Rawlings was a very happy man with all his dough. Holed up on that island, nothing but hate around him.
Well, money's not the answer to everything.
No, but as the saying goes, it sure helps. But then I guess it didn't help Harley much either. I wonder if we'll ever find that necklace.
It'll turn up.
Pretty optimistic, aren't you?
No, I'm sure of it.
Well, come on, Johnny, give. Where do you think it is?
Right there in your briefcase.
It's not a very funny gag, Johnny.
No, Marty. It's not.
And how about changing the snapper?
I wish I could, Marty. But it figured all along. Looking for every possible loophole, I guess. But they all closed up on me.
Where did I slip?
Where they all slip. At the very beginning. When you first thought of it.
What tipped you?
Rawlings swore that only he knew the combination of that safe. He was wrong. One other man knew it. The one who supervised its installation.
I should have known you'd tumble to that.
The paste pinned it down even closer, Marty. The reproduction was too good. No wonder. You had every descriptive detail in your copy of the policy. Weights, dimensions, photographs, everything.
I didn't go back to the island, Johnny. How could I make the switch?
That's where Harley came in. You slipped him the combination, and he made the switch. That's why the $10,000 payoff, and why you had to kill him and frame it as an accident.
Maybe I should have killed you, too, when I had the chance on the patio.
You've still got your gun?
Nah. What's the use? It was wrong all the way. Besides, I never could outshoot you.
Expense account item 4, $32.15. Hotel bill and incidentals in Miami. Item 5, $141.10. Plane fare and incidentals back to Hartford. Expense account total, $348.60. Remarks: with all due deference to my chosen profession, sometimes this is a lousy business. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and was written by Sidney Marshall with music by Milton Charles. Featured in tonight's cast were Jack Moyles, Lillian Bayef, Tom Tully, Howard McNear, Nestor Paiva, and Don Diamond. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Charles Lyon, inviting you to join us again next week at this same time when, from Hollywood, John Lund returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. for your listening enjoyment, John Lund as Johnny Dollar.
Mr. Dollar, this is Wilbur Runyon. I planned to meet you at the Dallas airport, but by the time I had you paid...
Oh, it's all right. Sorry you went to that trouble. I took a cab in. Are you at your office now?
Yes.
I'll be right over.
I hope the Home Office didn't think I was foolish asking for your help in this matter, but...
Oh, no, they didn't. Not after paying off 4 policies in one employee group in so short a time.
That's the way I figured it. Accidental deaths at the oil wells are one thing, but, well, murder puts a different light on it.
Yeah, it usually does. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Employees Cooperative Group Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Syndicate matter. Expense account item 1, $106.40, airfare and incidentals between Hartford and Dallas, including cab fare to the Alamo building, where I contacted Wilbur Runyon, manager of your Southwestern Division.
You, read my report to the Home Office, Mr. Dollar?
Yeah, what there was of it.
Well, there isn't much I can add to it, I'm afraid. Even the sheriff at Tupelo doesn't know any more than what I wrote. With the new oil strike, Tupelo's a boom town. That always means a certain amount of trouble.
4 murders seems like an extra large helping, though, even for a boomtown.
I don't know what to think of it. Of course, practically every man working in that field is insured with us under the group plan, so it isn't unusual that we've paid off in all 4 cases.
No, but it is unusual for all 4 men to die the same way. You said that in each case the victim had been beaten to death. The murders all followed the same pattern. That would seem to indicate that they'd all been done by the same person, or persons.
Oh, that's right. And collecting the insurance money might seem to be the answer if all the policies had been made out to the same beneficiary, but they weren't.
Who did benefit?
In all 4 cases, the wife of the victim.
Well, that still doesn't rule out a syndicate.
Well, what do you mean?
Killers can be hired, Mr. Runyon. They collect their share of the insurance after an unhappy wife becomes a merry widow.
Not in this case.
Why not?
Oil company that made the strike at Tupelo is one of the best. They pay the premiums for their employees. No payroll deduction.
So?
So, 2 of the wives who collected didn't even know about the insurance until we contacted them.
That could be an act.
I'll let you judge that for yourself. Now, last man killed was a driller named Gonzalez, Mexican. I haven't paid the claim yet. I asked his wife to come in this afternoon to pick up the check. She'll be here in a minute.
This money comes from the men who killed my husband?
No, Mrs. Gonzalez. It's insurance, life insurance the oil company paid for.
$2,000?
Well, that's right, ma'am.
You have a family, Mrs. Gonzalez? Somebody you can go to?
My mother, my brother in Sonora. But my husband, Manuel, he always wanted the baby to be born here in Estados Unidos. Everything was going to be so good.
Did your husband have any enemies?
Enemies for what, senor? He never hurt nobody.
There were 3 other men killed, Mrs. Gonzalez. Did he know any of them?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. We were in Tupelo for only 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
I forgot to mention that in my report, Dollar. All the men killed have been newcomers to the Tupelo field.
Where'd they work before they came there? They all come in from the same job someplace else?
Oh, no, all came from different places. None of them had worked for a couple of months before hitting Tupelo, according to employment records.
Was your husband out of work for a long time before you went to Tupelo, Mrs. Gonzalez?
Senor, we have no money. He worried all the time.
Did your husband drink or gamble?
Oh, no, senor. He was a good man. He tried hard to work every day, even when he was hurt.
Hurt? Where? How?
Well, it was some accident at the well.
You know anything about that, Runyon?
No, but one of the other women mentioned the same thing. An accident the week before the killing.
What did your husband say about his accident, Mrs. Gonzalez?
Well, he tell me he falls off, but he has marks all over. For 2 days he stay in bed. I tried to make him stay longer, but he cried. He say he must get up and go back to work. He say he's afraid he will lose the job.
Well, not for an on-the-job injury, he wouldn't.
Well, there isn't any record of an on-the-job injury, Dollar.
He was afraid for something. You wouldn't tell him, but he was afraid.
How do I get to Tupelo?
Oh, Trailways bus depot right across the street. But like I said, even the sheriff is stumped on this one.
I'm not going to see the sheriff. I'm going to get myself a job in that oil field.
Oh, I see. Want me to contact the company, make sure there's an opening?
No, don't contact anybody. We already know of 4 openings. Expense account item 2. $5.20 for a used suit of dungarees and a pair of work shoes. Item 3, $6.12. Bus fare from Dallas to the Tupelo oil field. I found quarters in a rundown boarding house, and at 7 the next morning, I was at the employment office. Before 9 a.m., I had a shovel in my hand and was digging a sludge pit.
Hey, you, the new man. Knock off a minute.
You talking to me?
Yeah, come here. What's your name?
Johnny Dollar.
Well, I'm Bull Farrell, straw boss on this job.
Hi.
Smoke?
Oh, thanks.
New man comes on the job, I like to get to know him. Help him along if I can. Where'd you work last before you come here?
I was out of a job for quite a while.
Oh, that's too bad. No money coming in gets rough on a fella.
Yeah.
You broke? I ain't being nosy, Dollar. Just thought if you was, I might figure out a way to help.
Thanks. I'll get by all right.
Well, if you do get stuck, let me know. All right, you can go back to work.
He was friendly, all right. A little too friendly. I was a stranger, but he wanted to help me out with money. And when I said I didn't need it, he didn't like it. It was too late to go back to him without making him wonder. I had to figure out a way to make him offer again. By lunchtime, I had it figured. I left the well and crossed the field to the office. I went up to the payroll window.
Something I can do for you?
Yeah, I just signed on this morning. When's payday?
Weekend Wednesday. You get your money Thursday.
Any chance of getting a little advance? I'm broke.
Your first day on the job, what do you think this is?
Well, I gotta get by until payday. I gotta eat.
I can't help that. Advances are against the rules.
Well, thanks anyhow.
Hey, just a minute.
Yeah?
You need some money. See Bull Farrell.
See Bull Farrell. All roads led back to the straw boss. And seeing him wasn't hard. He was leaning against the wall of the payroll shack when I came out.
Hey, Dollar, wait up. Bracing the cashier for an advance, huh? I could have told you that wouldn't work.
You're right, it didn't.
Why didn't you come to me like I told you?
All right. You want to lend me some money?
Well, I wish I could, but I'm just a working stiff myself.
Well, then why the offer?
I thought I'd send you to Frankie Roebling. Runs the tool department. Aunt or somebody died and left him a bundle. He likes to help guys along.
Just like that, huh?
Well, he'll expect a little something for his trouble, a little interest. After all, he's taking a chance. You're new on the job. You want to see him or don't you?
Yeah, I want to see him. You said the tool shack?
Don't bother him on the job. Room 12, the Tupelo Hotel, tonight.
I'm looking for Frankie Roebling.
I'm Roebling. You Dollar or Prescott?
Johnny Dollar.
Deal me out of court. Come on, the next room, Dollar. I understand you need some dough.
That's right.
How much?
How much can I get?
Enough to live on until payday. If you ain't planning on taking any trips, where do you live?
Kilgallen's boarding house.
$20 see you through?
Sounds all right.
Yeah. And on payday, you'll drop in and give me the 30 back, right?
30 for 20?
Well, just to show you appreciate the favor. Well, you wanted it, don't you?
All right. You want me to sign some kind of a note? An IOU?
What for? I'll remember it. And if you forget, I'll remind you.
$20 and 4 dead workmen. There was a big gap, no way of linking them together. But somewhere the pieces had to fit. Then Thursday came, and I drew my first pay.
Hi, Dollar. Get your dough all right?
Huh? Oh, yeah, Bo. I got it. $32.80.
Well, only 3 days. Frankie Roebling will be expecting to see you tonight.
I know.
He just asked me to remind you. Some of these roughnecks get absent-minded and makes it tough on everybody, especially themselves.
Don't worry, Bo. I got a good memory. More than 50 men were in Roebling's room that night, all of them in work clothes, all of them giving him money, and none of them enjoying it. I waited until the last of them paid up and drifted out.
Well, Dollar, I see you hanging back while the other boys are shelling out.
I wanted to see you alone.
Yeah, I know. That means you want to talk, and when you want to talk, it means you want to stall about paying.
I only had 3 days' pay coming.
You knew that when you borrowed the money.
I had the boarding house to pay. I have to live, don't I?
Do you?
All I'm asking for is more time.
All right, Dollar. I'll give you more time. Next payday. Only then it'll be $40, not 30.
Suppose I say I won't pay it. What do you do then, Roebling? Take me outside?
You thinking of getting hard, Dollar?
No, Roebling. Just curious.
Yeah. Big, too, ain't you? Big, hard guy. Next week, $40. I figure by next week you may soften up.
And now, with our star, John Lund, we bring you the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
I went into a couple of the honky-tonks along the main drag and tried to strike up conversations with men I'd seen in Roebling's room. But they shied away from the subject like skittish horses. I was ready to give it up when a man I recognized from the job came over and set his beer down next to mine.
Mind if I sit down?
Help yourself.
My name's Prescott, Wally Prescott.
Yeah, I know. You were behind me in the pay line this afternoon.
Yeah.
And I saw you up at Roebling's room tonight. What were you doing there? Paying off?
Yeah. I saw you, too. But you didn't pay off.
How do you know?
I heard some talk later. Roebling and Bull Farrell. It's none of my business, maybe, but you better pay.
I'm short of cash.
Look, a lot of us are short. I'm just telling you for your own good. I'm on the hook myself.
If they don't like it, let them sue me.
That isn't the way they work it.
How do they work it?
Vronsky and a couple of the others could tell you. If you don't pay up in full by next week, you're liable to get worked over. That doesn't convince you?
Yeah?
Well, a few guys have died around here since the field opened.
Too bad a few guys didn't have a talk with the sheriff instead.
About what? A beating in a dark alley from a bunch of guys you can't identify? What would it prove? And what happens next when the guys you want behind bars can't be put there? Every payday, I just about managed to pay off. I got a wife and 2 kids, so I got to borrow all over again to feed them. Vronsky's in the same boat. So are a dozen others.
I wanted to walk and think about it. I left the main drag behind and started toward the boarding house, cutting across lots on the gravel walks between the trailers.
Mister,
Yeah?
could you give me a hand?
Where are you?
Back here into the trailer.
What's the matter?
Oh, so this butane tank's clogged or something. My stove won't work. You got a flashlight?
No, I'll see what I can do, though. Haven't you got a... Oh! Waves of pain swirled over me, and then I was sucked down into a whirlpool of blackness. When I came out of it, I was alone. I could feel the gravel biting into the side of my face. After a while, I managed to get on my feet. make my way to the boarding house. I fell across the bed with my clothes on and passed out again. Oh. Come in.
Well, what happened to you, Dollar?
I had a little accident, Bo. Isn't that what usually happens?
Rough town. I'd have known better than to get liquored up on pay night. I'd have known that's what happened when you didn't show for work this morning.
Why don't you save it? We're alone.
Oh, what are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about. You and Roebling had me worked over.
I wouldn't go around saying foolish things I couldn't prove if I was you. Things could be worse, you know. You might have been hurt as bad as Prescott was.
Prescott?
Yeah. He got you talking through a bottle last night, and somebody resented it. He's over at the hospital. Ain't saying much today, though. Guess he's sobered up.
Guy with 2 kids.
Probably lose a whole week's work. Roebling likes him, though. He'll see him through. You better be back on the job tomorrow, though. You got obligations, too, you know. They're due next Thursday.
Don't worry, Bull. I'll be paid off in full. Expense account item 4. $5 to Dr. Wayne Libet of Tupelo for patching up some of the damage done by Frankie Roebling's bill collectors. Item 5, 80 cents, round-trip bus fare to the county seat at Langham, where I laid the story on the line for Sheriff Arthur McMahon.
How much of this can you prove, Dollar?
Not a speck of it.
I could probably put a couple of deputies on it, and with luck, we might be able to hang a loan shark charge on Roebling.
He'd get bail and scare all the witnesses out of town in 5 minutes.
Sure he would. Besides, I want him for murders. I want him as bad as you do.
Yeah, I know it.
Everybody's been on my neck for this Tupelo mess. Letters from civic groups. They all come to churches. They yell for action, but they forget about evidence. When they get in a position where they could testify personally, that's when they lose their tongues.
Prescott can testify to the setup.
You think he'll testify now? After what happened to him just because he gave you a warning? Can he point to one single man and line up and say he did it?
No, neither can I. Wait a minute. Suppose you got them trying to kill somebody before they succeeded.
What do you mean?
I was jumped last night for failing to pay Roebling. Gonzalez and the others drew one beating that way before they were killed.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Roebling expects me to kick him with $40 next Thursday night. Suppose I don't pay him again.
You willing to be the clay pigeon on this?
If you keep me tagged next Thursday night from the minute I leave that hotel.
I'll be there. But if we stop them from killing you, we still wind up with an assault charge.
They all know they've done murder before, though, Sheriff. When you take them in and split them in different cells, each one is going to be worrying about how much the others are talking. Somebody in that syndicate is going to get nervous. I went back to the job. For the first couple of days, my head throbbed and my sides ached until the beating finally wore off. Bull Farrell was at his post outside the payroll shack when Thursday came. I saw him speak to a couple of the men. With me, he didn't think it was necessary. When we knocked off for the day, I headed straight for the Tupelo Hotel in Roebling's room.
Hello, Dollar.
Hello, Roebling.
Come up on business or just to talk again?
I came up to tell you I couldn't pay you this week.
Oh, it's too bad. I'm sorry to hear it.
I had an accident. Had to pay a doctor bill. I borrowed $20 from you, and you'll get it next week. $20.
That's bad business, Dollar, to lend money without interest.
You gonna do something about it?
A big guy like you? No, you're too big for me. Much too big. You know what I'm gonna do?
I got an idea.
I'm gonna make that 20 a gift, Dollar, from me to you. No strings. No strings at all.
I left the hotel and hit the main drag as I had the week before. I started to sweat. The sheriff and his deputies were around. I couldn't see him. I pretended to have quite a few drinks in a half a dozen bars before I headed for the boarding house. Once I got away from the center of town, the streets were like a cemetery.
Hey, Dollar?
Who's that?
Bull Farrell. Friends of yours with me. Fellas you met last week. Want to take you to a party with us.
No, thanks.
Come on, boys. We can do it here. All right, come on. Should have listened to Prescott. He told you a couple of guys was killed. Okay, boys. Give them the full job this time.
All right, that's enough. I got 4 deputies riding herd on this party. First one of you to move stops a bullet. Now, just stand there and get your hands up. You all right, Dollar?
Yeah. Where the devil were you?
Passed you in the car on the way out, turned into the driveway across the street.
How'd you know where to stake out?
This big mouth laid it out for his playmates in the hotel bar right after you left. My deputy was standing less than 10 feet away from him.
Okay, so I start to beat a guy up. Let's get in and pay the fine.
Sure, I got a half dozen murder warrants here in the name of John Doe, too. What do you want to do about them?
Where's your corpse? Are you kidding?
No, I'm not. Prescott and Bronsky and 20 other men are in jail right now, protective custody. And they've all made statements. Some one of them is bound to recognize one of your boys.
Sure. We got all of you except Frankie Roebling. He's the boy who's going to pay the fine, Bull. While you sweat it out, he'll pay a fine for loan sharking and then get out of the state.
Who are you bluffing? You guys keep your mouths shut. You got nothing on any of us.
Let's all go in and wait and see, huh?
They wavered, but they didn't break. We knew that by Monday morning, Roebling would have a high-powered attorney in to spring him on a writ. Roebling was getting jittery himself, though. He didn't know what was going on inside, and it was killing him. We watched him from the upper window of the courthouse.
Look at him down there. He's more nervous than the ones we got here under lock and key.
Yeah, been hanging around all day.
If I could only get him in here for 24 hours.
On the loan charge? He'd bail himself out before he got the key turned. Hey, who is that he's talking to?
Jailer. Going over to the cafe to get supper for the others. Every time he crosses the street, Roebling tries to pump him.
Oh, that's a frightened man, Sheriff. He could blow up any minute.
Not unless we find a way to light the fuse.
Hey, wait a minute. Maybe we can get a match under him.
How?
By putting on a show for his benefit. Suppose he thought we were going to bring Bull in here tonight and work him over.
I don't handle prisoners that way, Dollar.
You don't have to. All we want is for Roebling to think you're doing it. Is there a telephone over in that cafe?
Yeah.
Call over and get your jailer. On the way back, he can tell Roebling that Bull's getting a workout tonight.
I don't get what you're driving at.
Where do you think Roebling will be tonight after he gets that piece of information?
Right down there where he is now, sweating it out by proxy.
Sure he will.
Then what?
About 10 o'clock, get Bull out of the cell and bring him in here.
I won't manhandle him, Dollar.
Listen to me, will you? You bring him in and seat him over there. If Roebling's across the street, he'll see it.
Yeah?
Who's that deputy of yours, the big guy?
Mike Larkin?
Yeah. After we get Bull in here, we pull the shades. Then we march him right out again and put Larkin in that chair instead. If we can stage it right, we put the overhead lights out and turn that desk lamp on the chair so it throws shadows against the shade. From where Roebling stands, it'll look like the shadow in the chair is Bull's. We can also make it look like we're giving him a terrific beating.
Then what?
What would you do if you actually got a confession out of somebody in this room?
Go in the next office, type it up, have him sign it?
So that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Typewriter in there is right next to the window. Then you bring Bull in to sign it.
He won't sign a confession.
No, but he'll sign a denial. It isn't what Bull signs that matters. It's what Roebling thinks Bull Farrell is signing.
What's the idea? What are you pulling me in here for?
Won't take a minute, Bull. Just want you to sign this.
Sign what? What is it?
You can read it. It's a statement you made when we brought you in, denying any connection with the murder.
What do I have to sign it for?
Routine, Bull.
All right. Give me a pen. Let me get back to sleep.
Here. Use mine. Shake hands, friend. You've been a real big help.
All right, Joe. Take him back to cell. Yeah. Here's hoping, Dollar.
Won't take long to know, Sheriff, if Roebling thinks that...
McMahon. Yeah, Charlie? Good. No, I'll handle it myself. Let's go, Dollar.
It worked?
Yeah. Deputy I staked out at the cafe said Roebling bolted like a rabbit as soon as Bull took your fountain pen. We'll get him at the hotel.
And that about wound it up. There were 6 of them altogether. Bull steered the suckers to Roebling for half his take and kept a staff of 3 muscle men to enforce the payoffs. The girl who got me into that dark trailer park was the wife of one of the muscle boys. Expense account item 6, same as combined totals of items 1 and 3, $112.52. Transportation from Tupelo to Dallas and back to Hartford again. Incidentals and miscellaneous were covered by my earnings on the well job, proving that I live within my means. Expense account total, $236.04. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. For your listening enjoyment, John Lund as Johnny Dollar.
Ned Talbot, Johnny. What are you working on?
Why, nothing at the moment. I was thinking of going to New York for a couple of days. Why?
Well, I have one here on my desk you might be able to do something with while you're there.
Well, tell me about it.
Corinthian covers a textile outfit in New York. Wallace Cottons and Company. This week their auditors found a shortage in the books.
How much of a shortage?
Well, it's nearly 5,000. Wait, I got it right here. $4,185.
I'm supposed to find out who took it?
Oh, no, we already know who did that. One of the bookkeepers in their office, Lester James. He's been arrested and admitted everything. I thought maybe you could find out what he did with all that money.
Well, I'm going to New York anyway. I'll see what I can do. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Continental Adjustment Bureau, 418 Elizabeth Avenue, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Lester James matter. Expense account item 1, $32.56. Train fare and incidentals between Hartford and New York City. After receiving from Ned Talbot the necessary information concerning the indemnity claim of Wallace Cottons and Company, Incorporated. I arrived in New York at 1:30 in the afternoon and checked in at the New Weston. Central Division told me that Lester James is being held in the 17th Precinct Jail. I went right over.
Well, here you are, Dollar.
Now what? Take it easy, James. This is Johnny Dollar. He wants to talk to you.
Hello, James.
Hi. I'll see you later, Dollar, huh?
Yeah, thanks, Sergeant.
You'll give me a yell when you finish, huh?
Right.
Now, what are you? Lawyer or something?
Nope.
I don't want a lawyer. Said somebody'd be around to talk to me again, but I don't want to see anybody.
Why not?
I just don't want to see anybody, that's all.
Well, you'll have to be represented by counsel when you go into court.
All right, let somebody represent me. Just a technicality anyhow. I know what'll happen in court. I've got my confession. Who are you, anyway?
I'm an insurance investigator.
Well, what are you doing here? It's a swell day outside.
I'm trying to find out what you did with that $4,185 that you took from Wallace Cottons.
Oh, that?
Yeah, that. How about it, James?
Isn't it enough that I'm in jail?
It's enough for the police, but not for my insurance company.
I don't have anything to say to you.
Now, look, don't be foolish. A whole or a partial recovery will have a lot to do with what happens to you in court.
I don't want to be foolish. It's just that I spent it all. Every dime of it. No way to pay it back.
Spend it on what?
Doesn't make any difference.
Might make a lot of difference.
I don't have anything to tell you.
You've never been in trouble before, have you?
No.
They think of things like that when a man comes up for sentencing. Now, this is your first offense.
I know.
You trying to shield somebody, James?
Why don't you go away?
You been trying the market? Did you gamble with it?
No, just leave me alone. I won't tell you anything, Mr. Dollar.
If you bought something with it or gave it to somebody, if it can be recovered in some way.
No, I tell you, go away, leave me alone.
I'd like to, but you're a thief, James, and you're going to get what's coming to you. I can't leave you alone.
Listen.
Now, you listen to me. If I don't get the information I want from you, I'll get it elsewhere. I'm going to be real honest with you. Corinthian Liability wrote a blanket policy on Wallace Cottons and Company, promising to pay them in full for every loss caused by fire or theft on their premises. Now, no insurance company takes the word of some guy sitting in a jail cell where there's cash to be recovered. It's the same as stolen property. If you gave it to someone or spent it when it wasn't yours, it's still redeemable. Now, what do you have to say?
Look, Mr. Dollar, this won't do you any good. I'm no low forehead job who got caught crawling in a drugstore window. I'm a college graduate. I've been in the business world for 10 years or better. I know what I want to tell you and what I want to keep to myself. And I don't want to talk about this, do you understand? And there's no way or no person who can make me talk about it. I took the money, I admitted that. I did a bad job of it, I was caught, I've confessed, and you've got me. And that's the whole story.
Okay. Have it your way, Lester.
Go away. Just go away, please.
Lester James was a tall, dark-complexioned man in his early 30s. His hair was black, straight, and closely cropped. His features regular. Not good, not bad. Kind of man you see every day on the street. Somehow, the kind of man I hadn't expected to meet. Expense account item 2, $1.35, cab fare. I went over to the apartment on 59th Street where Lester James had lived. According to the penciled note above the first door to the right of the entrance, Mrs. Anastasia Denovich was the manager.
Yes, what is, please?
You're Mrs. Denovich?
Yes, what you want, mister?
I understand that Mr. Lester James lived here. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Bad. Bad. I hear he steals money, and that's bad.
Yeah. I'm from the insurance company, Mrs. Denovich. We're trying to recover some of that money if we can. Wonder if you could help me.
I fixed dinner now for my son. He's come home from work. What I do?
Well, I want to know about Lester James.
What is?
The works, Mrs. Denovich. Did he drink? Gamble? Did he stay in nights or go out? Did he pay his rent?
You're a policeman?
Insurance investigator.
Oh, please. Sometime else.
Look, it's important now.
I talked to Lester on phone. He said I don't have to answer any question.
Well, you don't have to, but I'd appreciate it if you would.
My son home soon. All right, mister. I know these things. You ask about men who live here.
Well, look, how about his friends? Who visited them?
No. I cannot say. No visitor.
Was he a good tenant?
No trouble, like Mr. O'Sullivan on third floor, always drunk. Fine.
Did you ever meet his girl?
Girl?
Well, sure, his girl. He has a girlfriend.
No, I never see girlfriend.
How long have you known him?
5, 6 years, maybe, ever since he moved in here, this place.
You know how he spent his time?
Work. He work hard.
No, I mean besides working at the textile company. How else?
No. He poor fellow, that one.
How's that?
He steal money through, but he poor fellow just same. For him, I feel.
Yeah.
Lester, he quiet and he think. I know he live up in that little room quiet. Think, he does all the time, he think. Oh, my son's dinner, please, you go now.
Just a minute. I'd like to see his apartment, if I can.
No matter. You bring key back, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Denovich. The apartment Lester James had lived in was as dismal as the neighborhood. A tiny closet kitchen, a bed that came out of the wall, and a pair of grimy windows that looked across the court into another pair of equally grimy windows. The furniture was early 30s and threadbare. Among his personal effects, I found nothing of value. The apartment yielded no more information than James had. Expense account item 3, $1.95, dinner. I had it in a neighborhood restaurant called the 59er. A place where, I learned, Lester James had frequently eaten. The restaurant manager remembered him and liked him. A woman who ran a bakery shop across the street told me how he'd come back from the war in 1946 and had worn his uniform for a month until he got a job and could buy some civilian clothes. All in all, I was getting a composite picture of Lester James that didn't look quite right. Whatever he was to the people who knew him casually, he wasn't a man who ever had any money to spend.
Well, hiya.
Hi.
No good, huh? Well, that's the way it goes. We had some action here today, no?
Oh?
Sit down. James' preliminary hearing was this afternoon. A man from the district attorney's office took about 15 minutes to lay out the evidence against James.
Uh-huh.
And the public defender took about 3 minutes trying to get James to answer one question. What did he do with the money?
Did I miss anything?
No, not a thing. Wouldn't open up at all. Just said that he'd spent it.
Well,
Public defender about threw up his hands.
I'm about ready to throw up mine. When is the trial set for?
Sometime next week.
I'd like to talk to him again. He been moved yet?
Didn't go to the sheriff's office.
Somebody bail him?
He bailed himself. $200 he had in war bond.
Has he left yet?
No. Won't get out till about 6. That's when the shift changes. You still want to see him?
Yeah, I'll wait.
later, when Lester James emerged from the doorway and turned right, I followed him, about a half a block behind. When he caught a cab and headed uptown, I caught one, stayed right with him. When he got out at the Empress Theater and walked around to the stage door, I was standing at the alley entrance. 10 minutes later, he came out and hailed a cab. Once more, I followed. This time, he went back to his apartment on 59th Street. I waited 15 minutes before I went in. James? James? James, it's me, Johnny Dollar. I got a couple of whiffs of it standing there in front of the door. The room was acrid, stinging with gas fumes, and Lester James was stretched out on the floor of his 6-foot kitchen. When I picked him up and carried him out, I didn't know whether he was alive or dead.
Our star, John Lund, we bring you the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
Seconds after I found Lester James, I'd called a police ambulance. In a matter of minutes, an intern was working over him with a pull motor. There was no telling how much gas he breathed in or for how long a time the jet had been open.
Hand me that. Thanks. Swab. Okay.
You alive?
Maybe. Hard to say on these. That shot should cause some reaction.
Oh?
This your place?
No, it's his.
You know him?
His name is Lester James. I met him earlier today.
Can you give me that? We might be getting something here.
What, this thing?
Yeah. He'll be sick if... Oh.
What?
He's catching on.
Oh, yeah.
Let's have a little more. Getting some pulse. Respiration, too.
Will he make it?
Well, it depends. If he had a heart condition, it'll be tough. There's nothing more we can do here. Let's move him.
Now, where'll he be?
48th Street emergency. Why?
Well, I'd like to talk to him when he comes around.
Better phone in first.
Oh, sure.
Well, that's the third one tonight. What is it, the weather?
Not for him.
You know why?
He's out on bail. Goes to trial on an embezzling charge pretty soon.
Oh. Well, be sure and call in.
Yeah, right. The investigating officers questioned me regarding the circumstances of Lester James's attempted suicide. I told them what had happened and gave them my business address for reference. After that, I went back to my hotel and had dinner. Then I went over to the Empress Theater. A musical show was playing there, and it had just finished.
I didn't quite get that, mister.
$1.
Oh, Mr. Dollar, what can I do for you, sir?
Between 6:30 and 7 o'clock tonight, a man came here to the stage entrance and talked to you.
A lot of people talk to me here. What man?
His name was Lester James.
No, I don't remember no Lester James.
Maybe he didn't give you his name.
You come here to see somebody? Is that it?
He might have, I don't know. He's about 5'11", weighs 175 or 80. Didn't have any hat on, raincoat, dark man. You remember him?
Oh, yes, of course. Him, yes.
You remember him?
Oh, sure, yeah. He's been around a lot of times, Lester James. I didn't even recognize that name at first.
Would you mind telling me what he was doing here?
Well, he comes here to see Margie Cook.
That his girlfriend?
Oh, no, I don't think so. She never sees him when he asks.
Who's Margie Cook?
She sings here.
You ever seen them together?
Well, don't know. I've never seen them together.
Is she still here?
What's that?
I'd like to talk to her. Is she still here?
Oh, no, Margie left. She finishes in the second act.
Could you tell me where she lives?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I can't tell you that.
Well, where can I phone her?
Well, I just can't tell you that either.
Look, would you do me a favor?
Well, if I can, what is it?
Would you telephone her and tell her my business and ask her if she'd see me?
Well, I suppose I can do that, all right, Mr. Dollar. Take a chair right there. I'll just see what I can do for you.
Expense account item 4, $2.65. More cab fare. This time to the apartment of Margie Cook, singer. She met me at the door with cold cream on her face, wrapped in a chenille dressing gown. Miss Cook?
You must be Mr. Dollar. Come in, please.
Thank you.
I didn't quite understand Frank on the telephone.
Frank? Oh, the doorman at the theater. Yeah.
Yes. I didn't quite know what to make of it. Goodness, are you really an insurance detective?
Yeah, investigator.
Can I fix you a drink?
No, thanks.
You mentioned something about a man named Lester James, Mr. Dollar?
Yes. You know him?
Well, no, I don't.
There's sort of a reservation in the way you say that, Miss Cook. You know his name?
Yes, I know the name. What's this all about?
Oh, just a routine investigation.
Are you sure?
Oh, yes.
I'm curious. How did you get my name? How am I connected with Lester James?
Well, that's what I want you to tell me.
Oh, first, about my name.
Well, James was at the theater tonight asking for you. I found that out from the doorman. And then I asked to speak to you.
Oh.
I understand James has been around there quite a bit.
I really don't know how to tell you this. I've only seen the man once in my life.
Is that so?
Honestly. He's really quite impossible. Oh, dear. This is very embarrassing to be asked about a thing like this by a complete stranger.
Well, maybe I can save you that embarrassment if you'll answer one question.
All right.
He ever give you any presents?
Yes.
What?
Well, that cigarette case there.
This one?
Mm-hmm. And the lighter to go with it.
Uh-huh. Tiffany's.
Pretty, aren't they?
And expensive. What else?
Well, let me think. Oh, that wasn't from him. Oh, that was.
What?
The lamp over there.
Uh-huh.
And a fur piece.
Could I see that?
I'm afraid I gave it away.
Oh, I see.
I gave it to my kid sister who was visiting me a couple of months ago.
What kind of fur piece was it?
Ermine.
Ermine.
I think that's about it. Except for orchids that used to come every night. A dozen orchids every night.
He sent them to you?
Mm-hmm. For about 3 months.
You only saw him once, and he gave you all these gifts.
Oh, dear. I know how that must sound. Look, it started about 6 months ago, I guess. I got a card in my dressing room one night asking me to dinner. It was signed Lester James. Well, I'd never heard of anyone named Lester James, and I tore it up. But every night after that, I kept getting the card, and pretty soon flowers, and then the lighter, and the cigarette case came. That's when I saw him. I didn't even dine with him, Mr. Dollar. We had one drink, and I told him I had a headache.
I see.
Gifts still kept coming, flowers, invitations, and I ignored them. I tried to send the things back, but I didn't know where to send them, so I gave away some, and some I've kept, and that's it.
Why didn't you see him after that one night?
Oh, he was so different than what I'd imagined. I mean, I've had my share of stage door Johnnies, but this man was... Well, he couldn't say a word without stumbling. He had no poise, no sophistication, nothing. All he had was money.
I see. Well, he didn't have money either, Miss Cook.
What?
He worked for $72 a week as a bookkeeper.
But all the gifts, the things he gave me, sent me, he had to have money.
He's been stealing it to buy those things for you.
For heaven's sake. Why, for heaven's sake. And that's why you're here. No wonder.
He tried to commit suicide a couple of hours ago.
Suicide? No. Oh, no.
I'm sorry I had to come to you to get this information. He wouldn't tell anybody what he'd done with the money.
Will he go to prison?
I'm afraid so.
Oh, but we had nothing. He was just a name to me.
Well, apparently, you were something more to him. I spent the next 2 days tracking down the places from which the gifts had been purchased and ascertaining their retail values. Totaled $2,780. I also learned from Margie Cook that Lester James had made appointments to meet her at various times at different expensive restaurants around town. She had never once kept any of these appointments. A check with the Waldorf, 21, the Stork, and several other places revealed that James had always made elaborate arrangements to entertain her. His restaurant bills, which were paid, came to $835. The florist's bill, $680, Total, $4,295. Hello?
Hi.
Remember me?
Sure. Insurance man. What now?
How do you feel?
Okay. You saved me, didn't you?
I suppose so.
Why?
Well, for the same reason you'd save a man who was dying, James. You know what I've been doing?
What?
Answering the questions that you wouldn't answer. I met Margie Cook.
What?
My job, I had to.
Listen, you had no right to go to her. You had no right.
Look, it's the company's money you were spending on her. I had every right. Unpleasant as it may be.
And she knows all about me?
Yep. We took back all the things you gave her.
You dirty scum.
Look, don't get mad at me. Get mad at yourself. I didn't steal the money. You did.
Why didn't you leave it alone? What difference does the money make to you?
Nothing to me.
What do you want now?
Well, I didn't get all of it traced down. There's still $410 I'm worried about. Yeah. Here. I've got this much.
Yeah.
Can you remember what you did with the rest of it?
Pretty thorough, aren't you?
I try to be. Well? Oh, come on, Lester. We've got most of it. What difference does it make now?
You and your money. That's all it is to you. Dollars and cents.
Dollars and cents that were stolen. Remember that. What did you do? See her on the stage one night?
No. She was in the office.
Office? Your office?
Yes. Some fashion convention about 6 months ago. She was modeling some of our fabrics for them. The publicity people brought her over. I never saw anyone like that before.
You figured a little money would attract her to you, huh?
I heard that's the best way to do it.
Well, it's one way, but it's not the best way, Lester.
Right. I pictured myself knocking on her door one night and saying, I'm a bookkeeper and I live on 59th Street. Why don't you come over and have a bottle of beer with me?
You know, she might have come.
What makes you think so?
I met her. Up until the time I talked with Lester James in the emergency hospital, I had my doubts about love at first sight. But after I talked to him, I was convinced that it could and did happen. To him. I was sorry that he didn't know quite how to handle it. I was also wondering if I'd been in his shoes, would I have done the same thing? Johnny Dollar.
Oh, I was afraid you might have left town.
I'm just packing up. Who's this?
Margie Cook, remember me?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I haven't been able to sleep thinking about that man.
Lester James?
Yes. What'll happen to him?
He'll go to prison.
Even with all of the money returned?
Only half of that stuff's redeemable. Take at least, $2,500 more.
And then what?
Well, then it would be up to the court.
I want to pay it.
What?
I want to make it up, the whole thing.
Look, Miss Cook, I know your motives are the best, but you're not responsible in any way for this man's actions. He just went...
$50. He's the first man I've ever known who actually went out on a limb for the girl he loves. I'm the girl and he's the man.
Are you serious?
Poor dumbbell. He doesn't belong in any prison. He ought to get married to some nice girl. I want to help him. Are you still there?
Yeah.
What's the matter?
Oh, nothing. Nothing at all. Expense account item 5, $28, hotel. Item 6, $37, meals. Item 7, $15.15, miscellaneous. Item 8, same as 1, transportation back home. Total, $151.22. Remarks, James comes to trial next week, and in view of Margie Cook's paying back the money he stole, James just might get a suspended sentence. But, as always, that's up to the court. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.